Had the Google Pixel 6 not been such a hit, I'm not sure we'd still have a Pixel. Let's talk about that. This phone is very similar to the outgoing and upcoming models of the Pixel. The stylish front side with minimal bezels and a punch hole, and then the unique camera bar around the back, all housing high-end components including Google's own silicon. But how did we get here? You'd be forgiven for thinking that the first 5 generations of Pixel were made by entirely different companies for an entirely different series. Sure, the second and third generation looked fairly alike, but aside from that, we got a plastic covered metal with mid-range specs, we got an expensive slim slab with a focus on air gestures? And the first generation looked like a concept phone from Qualcomm or something, with some of the most polarizing design choices ever made to a smartphone. This erratic change in direction wasn't just limited to the designs of these things. The sales figures were all over the place as well. Google really couldn't work out if it wanted to make cheap phones, pricey phones, big phones, small phones, but then it released this. The Pixel 6 and 6 Pro made a bold statement with their flagship specifications, classy designs, an all-new camera system that, instead of leaning entirely on software, actually used it in conjunction with bigger sensors and more elaborate lens systems. This is the formula that Google stuck with for its 7 series, and it seems to really carry over to the upcoming Pixel 8 series if the company's teasers are anything to go by. Google finally found its formula with the Pixel 6, and if I'm honest, it's held up pretty well a couple of years later. It's been 2 years since Google unveiled the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, but from where I'm standing, the Pixel 6 Pro still feels like a flagship smartphone, at least from a hardware standpoint. It's one of my favourite smartphone designs of all time. The glass and metal build still feels classy and solid. The rear glass camera visor is a far better looking design than the metal one we find on newer Pixels, and you can definitely fight me on that one. The design overall hasn't changed much between the 6 and the 7 and now the upcoming 8, and that's kind of on purpose. There's a reason that Apple's designs last so long. Google needed to find its identity, and this is it. Camera visor, center punch holes, and cool color options. The shift in direction to focus on high-end quality certainly didn't come without controversies. The Pixel 6 Pro's $899 price was quite the jump from the previous phone. Though in fairness, you did get a lot more hardware for your money. The 6.7-inch Quad HD Plus 120Hz OLED was one of those upgrades, and it made that big difference to how you actually used a smartphone. This thing was huge. I mean, it still is a hefty phone for those of us without hands the size of shovels. Whether you're catching up on your favourite show or getting some game time in, this screen still looks the part. Especially with that high refresh rate, it keeps it feeling fluid, even after 24 months, and that's not surprising looking at the specs. The more controversial decision was Google opting to start its own SoC line to emulate Apple's control of its software and hardware. It was a decent first attempt, but it failed to live up to the competition, particularly in graphics performance, signal, and battery life. Since then, its successor, Google's Tensor G2, has improved performance and cellular connectivity, but is still a ways off the likes of Qualcomm and Apple when it comes to a complete SoC package. It isn't all about benchmarks and FPS, stuff like signal, battery life, and heat management all come into play here too. But it does look like Google is taking this stuff seriously, and we can all judge for ourselves when the Pixel 8 series lands. The 6 Pro was never particularly pro in those areas. Sure, it's more than usable whether you're a casual social media browser or more of a gamer. This general performance is pretty good, but when you push it right to its limits, it will quickly come unstuck. And when you run these games on the Pixel 6 Pro, you will definitely feel the heat. This phone can get mega toasty under load. As for the battery life, well, that's not great either. This is a phone that can get most people through a full day, but power users will still need to charge it at lunch. For a phone with a 5,000 mAh battery, that's pretty poor efficiency. At least refilling the tank isn't that bad with 23-watt wireless charging and wired charging. It's still more than usable in 2023, don't get me wrong, but those who end the day with like 6 hours of screen on time might want to pick something else. Google really struck gold with this camera setup. Up until this point, the firm was using lower quality sensors and then having the computational photography do all of the heavy lifting. But this system combines great hardware with world-class software, and the results really speak for themselves. It was the first time that Google had included all 3 focal lengths on the back, a wide, an ultra-wide and a telephoto, though this wasn't any old telephoto, it was a 4x optical periscope, which is something that Samsung and Huawei had been doing for a while. But this time you got Google's renowned software processing to go with it. The results speak for themselves. The Pixel 6 Pro can still take fantastic photos, ones worthy of printing if you're really into it. Between the 48 megapixel main, 48 megapixel telephoto and 12 megapixel ultra wide, there are plenty of pixels to go around. Pun definitely intended with that one. Tonal capture is very natural and lifelike. Images come out sharp and punchy, and I really like the amount of contrast on offer with the Google Pixels. It's just the right amount. Google's software trickery really scaled well to large sensors, and it makes you wonder why they didn't try this sooner. But this isn't where the company focused its efforts when it came to the marketing. Instead of those nerdy details like megapixels, contrast and tonal capture, it marketed AI tools like refocusing after the fact and clever object removal that don't just look impressive the first time you use them, but are actually practically useful. How many times have you taken a photo of a pet or a loved one and either have an annoying object in the scene or the image came out blurry? Google knew this was a real problem and came up with solutions for this and stuck them in their ads. And it works. I can't tell you the amount of people who reply, "Oh, that's the phone that can remove objects in images and refocus afterwards," when I bring up the fact that I'm reviewing a Pixel phone. It's more than you would imagine, more than, "Oh, that's the phone with the 48 megapixel camera." No matter how nice you make the Google Pixel hardware, consumers see Google for its great software. But there are at least a few complications with the Pixel 6 over the span of its life. From the hard crashing to poor fingerprint recognition to bug UI elements, Google seemed to really be playing whack-a-mole with the new issues that were popping up seemingly every single day. The company has continued to patch issues, and that likely will be the case going forward to October of 2026. And the device is definitely usable in its current state, but it just doesn't have that polish, which is ironic for a company known for its great software. There's also the matter of the use of space. Google Pixel phones have continued to grow in physical size with their big screens, but Pixel experience hasn't adjusted very well. UI elements are quite large on the screen, and it looks really clean, but it also doesn't look very efficient. Given that the Pixel 7 Pro is, and the Pixel 8 Pro is looking to be, the same kind of form factor, it's up to Google to make sure that Pixel experience grows into its bigger hardware, if it wants to be taken seriously, at least in the phablet space. And can we bring that word back? I really like the word phablet. Look, the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro hold up really well 2 years later, and if you're not worried about having the latest and greatest, I don't see why you shouldn't hold on to your devices for a while longer yet. The company has so far iterated from the 6 series and given us consistently good smartphones for the first time since the line was unveiled 7 years ago. Google found its formula, and long may it continue to evolve and mature as we get more polished and cohesive smartphone experiences from the guys that continue to wow us with their software magic. Alright guys, that's it for today's video, and if you liked it, please hit that button and consider subscribing if you haven't already to never miss a video like this one. I've been Ryan Thomas with Android Police, and I'll catch you later. Cheers.